Why is this so hard? Okay, so what was I fucking talking about? What are words? What is life? Okay. Hey guys, my name is Dina Marie Rodriguez, and I'm a full-time hand lettering artist and illustrator living in Portland, Oregon. And this week I decided to do something kind of different by recording a vlog of my life. Pretty much just outlining what I do every day, how I deal with struggles as an artist, and maybe I could, offer you guys some help with anything that you might be for being super frustrated with. So let's start with Monday. So, just so you guys know a little bit about me, I'm pretty much a homebody. I'm in my pajamas all the time, and I wake up somewhere around 9 or 10 in the morning, not too early. I like to start off my days reading a book. I try to read at least one book a week. Sometimes it's about creativity and design, other times it's just about just fiction. Right now I'm reading What Happened by Hillary Clinton. I think we all have a lot of questions, and hopefully she answers some of them in her book. I'd start off my week creating what I like to call an audio diary. This is showcasing my progress on creating this new podcast that I'm developing called the Women of Illustration podcast. And this is the second ever audio diary, kind of me just walking you guys through my process creating a podcast for women so we can be more visible in the industry and make more money. This is where I'm able to help female illustrators, artists, and creatives make a name for themselves in the illustration industry. Just talking about things like how to be more productive, how to practice, how to build a website, what do you say in your website, how do you build a following on social media, all these questions that we rarely get answers to from other podcasts because they're usually so interview based. Nowadays, I'm doing something kind of different where I'm actually teaching at a local art school called Pacific Northwest College of Arts, PNCA for short. I take an Uber out there every week because parking is a bitch. Right now, I'm teaching a class called Advanced Illustration. Now, I know that's not a very descriptive title. I'm changing up the curriculum completely different, and I teach two different classes on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. My first class is seniors that are in their last semester ready to go out into the world. So right now, we're focusing on how to build up their website presence. I'm teaching them Squarespace, which I think is probably the best platform in the entire world, especially if you're not HTML friendly, and just really talking about what goes on a homepage and what kind of content you need to collect for yourself in order to be able to ideally sell yourself to potential clients or customers that want to hire you for your products or services. Getting down to how do you create a tagline for your site, how do you display your work, and a lot of these illustration students have never taken a design course, so being able to explain things like the power of the grid and negative space and visual hierarchy with typography has been really fun, especially when I get to work with the students more one-on-one after the lectures and really be able to see that level of excitement when they start to figure something out. And all these students are insanely fucking talented, so I'm really excited to see how their portfolio websites come out. My second class, which is on Wednesday, this is the first semester seniors. Now this class is all about prepping your portfolio so that way it's ready for the next class, which is putting it into a website presence. So this week we had a critique where the students actually got to create their what we like to call a what's missing project. Essentially, what's the one piece in your portfolio that you wish existed, and what would be the perfect project for you to put in your portfolio so you can get more work exactly like it. Because the only way to really get work is to make sure you already have it in your portfolio so you can do more of what clients can see that you can do, essentially. So the students went through their presentations. Some of them were nice enough to print them out, which was really cool to see. And some of them just had it ready for the projector, and really being able to walk me through their process of like why they made certain design decisions and how they went from thumbnails to sketches to the high fidelity mock-ups. So essentially the whole purpose behind this project is really teaching them how to create a job for themselves. And a lot of these students are actually going to be pitching these projects to dream companies they'd like to work for, either just to get another critique or some feedback on their work, or possibly get a job out of it, because that's what design school should help you with, right? Now, one snag in my week, it was kind of super frustrating, was I don't know if it was poop or dirt or what is happening in my laundry room, but we have this drain and it just started to explode once we started to take a shower. I don't know about you guys, but I like being clean. Luckily, the plumber came in the next day and fixed it. So when I'm not working on my podcast and teaching, I try to take as many breaks as possible, whether it's me sitting in front of the TV or taking the dogs on a nice long walk. I think it's really helpful just to be able to break away from the confines of the four walls of your office, or sometimes it's just a little breakfast nook as your studio, to be able to explore the world and just remove yourself from work, because life isn't all about work, right? One of the pieces I got to work on this week was for a personal commission that was commemorating how these two friends found each other and essentially changed each other's lives. I hand lettered the quote, "Thank goodness for fallen branches," which represents how there was this really big storm and the neighbor's tree fell in her yard, and that person who came over to frantically apologize for said tree ended up becoming her best friend. This person introduced her to her husband, introduced her to a job that she absolutely loves. So I was very excited to be able to be a part of that memory for her, to create essentially a custom poster. Now, with my work, you might see that I'm really big at refining. I want to remove the expectation from people who may not be super familiar with illustrators and what they do, but it takes a lot of time because we're creating something that's never fucking existed before. So there's a lot of refinement. Going for me, since I'm a lettering artist and I specialize in typography, just going over those letters over and over and over again, turning them upside down, making them smaller, making them big, just to make sure that I have maximum amount of readability, and also trying to make sure that the letters are looking consistent. Now hold on, my dogs are being assholes. You happier now? Okay. Yeah? Okay. She wants attention, so I'm just gonna hold her while talking to you. Okay, cool. So one thing I'll definitely say is I feel incredibly blessed that I have these two amazing interns that help me out twice a week to get all of the research done, to help me figure out all my social media strategy, and especially this week helping me just figure out how to make this podcast, because I've never made a podcast before, right? Never made a podcast before, and so just doing a ton of research, looking at what other podcasts are out there, what they're doing, what their website presence looks like, who their demographics are. So Rocky, she's my other intern, came in this week to help me out, just do some more research for the podcast. She's a huge help in helping me with my social media. She's really funny. She's the one that convinced me to use tons of GIFs in my Twitter. So if you guys want to check those out, it's just twitter.com/lettershop. So when she came in on Saturday, and I know that might seem weird that she came in on a Saturday, but she's a fucking lady boss like that. She came in and we ended up doing a test recording, because my first ever recording of the podcast with the official guest is actually Monday, which is tomorrow for me. So she kind of wrote down some questions and that were about me, about the podcast, to showcase in an audio diary.
So overall, the grand scheme, the great dream, if everything goes perfectly with the podcast and is able to continue for further seasons, what do you hope this podcast can accomplish? How do you want it to affect its listeners?
There's a lot of things we're doing differently with this podcast. The fact that it's not your normal interview podcast where you're just hearing origin stories from illustrators and designers, and the fact that we're actually talking about topics, and the people that we're having on the podcast are all mostly beginners and people who aren't popular, which no one does. Not a single podcast does that. I feel like anything that's about design or art or illustration, it's always the same 50 fucking people in every fucking podcast. And I've heard your origin story enough times, and I keep hearing and listening to you guys more, so maybe I'll get that little golden nugget that I've been waiting for, but it never comes. And just the fact that I don't want to just know that you exist. I want to know how I can be more like you. And just a mixture of all these things, I think, will make this podcast really memorable and help people that are both beginners and people who might be more advanced, because we're really trying to pull not only people from all over the world, but different educational backgrounds, different skill sets, and just different ways of doing things, just showing that there's more than one way to do anything in art. There's more than one way to become popular. There's more than one way to deal with clients, but just the idea of, hey, just try some shit and see what sticks, I think it's going to be the biggest motivator to why people might want to keep listening. If you guys would like to check out the rest of this recording, please go to patreon.com/women of illustration to be able to get free access to these weekly audio diaries. And for just $1, you also get first dibs on any episodes, because these episodes aren't actually going to be released until January. So if you would like to start hearing the podcast, I don't know, in maybe 2 weeks, consider supporting us. I'd really appreciate it. One of the things I was able to get done this week, which I wasn't expecting to, is I finished the Women of Illustration website in like a day, which is awesome. I actually started working on the website on Tuesday when I was teaching my class about Squarespace and how to build a website. And I ended up just pitching everything that I worked on and start over, because I feel like sometimes you need to see what's not working in order to figure out what does. So I went ahead in Squarespace, created a home page and an about page, pretty much just showing you guys all the amazing guests that we're going to have on the Women of Illustration podcast that gets released in January, what topics we're going to be talking about. There will be 21 episodes, which is more episodes than I had originally planned, but there's just so many amazing illustrators in the world. Every single person who contacted me to be a featured guest, I wanted to include everyone, so I thought adding 2 more topics would give us opportunity to talk to 4 more guests, which was pretty nice. And then I had Rocky, my intern, proof checking my website, making sure it looks good on mobile, making sure it looks good on iPad, making sure that everything's readable, there's no grammatical issues. I think being able to have a second pair of eyes, whether it's an intern or your boyfriend or whoever you got lying around, if they can read, they can help you figure out whether or not your website makes sense, right? So that's pretty much my week, and I know that sounds like a lot, but I really love what I do. It's a really good mixture of client work, doing personal commissions, teaching at college, and just having a bunch of side personal passion projects, because again, you're only going to get the kind of work that you put out. So why not create a passion project and throw it into the marketing space and see who it draws in? Because it's not just going to get the attention of fans that follow you on Instagram or people who are associated with you in your newsletter. It can also catch the eye of art directors, creative designers, and publishers. So if there's that perfect project you guys want to do, that thing that just keeps you up at night, like this podcast was for me, do it. Your body and the universe is trying to fucking tell you something, so pay attention and listen to it. All right, I hope you guys enjoyed my first ever vlog. I have no idea if I'm going to do this again or if I'm going to do it on a weekly basis, or you're just never going to hear from me. But I thought it'd be a nice experiment. I feel really weird about putting myself on the internet without makeup in weird angles that aren't always high but low, where I look fatter than I am, or exactly as fat as I am, and not wearing a bra and wearing pajama pants for 3 days in a row, because that's what it's really like. I don't want to be another designer that is only showcasing the best versions of themselves on the internet to make other people envious, because that's how we've created all this imposter syndrome that's going around. So I really thought it was really fun to film myself and not really give a shit what I look like, and really only cared about the message I was trying to share with you guys and the people I'm trying to help along the way. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you when I see you.